in entrepreneurship, there's all these skill sets that we have to get really good at, right? Recruiting, right? Marketing, sales, building software. Fundraising is a skill set. My thing that I follow and I focus on is being obsessed with where is the money moving? How do you create alignment of capital and understanding that problem? That's what I focus on every day. We're going to start seeing billion-dollar solo entrepreneur companies. It's all about value creation, which is very exciting. I mean, think about the diverse founders that never had access. And now it comes down to the innovation of their idea, and more importantly, how much they can execute, deliver that value.
Hey everyone, welcome to Broadcast Your Authority. I'm here with another season with some amazing co-hosts, which you'll be meeting here shortly. For today's episode, I'm super excited because we're here in Vegas, and a buddy of mine, Kurt Walker, decided to join us. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. He's the founder of VentureHaus, and he's a 20-year funder, startup lender, investor, and VC obsessed with fundraising and ecosystem building. He is just an amazing rock star. That's all I have to say at that point. But Kurt focuses on building founder and funder family office and UH&W communities and hosts tons of pitch events and other events and amazing events. He always invites me whenever he's out in Phoenix to join him. And it's a pleasure to have you here today, Kurt. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Good to see you again.
Yes. So how long have you been out here in Vegas?
So I'm from Utah, but I've been here for 12 years. And I, like many, underestimated and misunderstood Vegas. And once I understood how amazing the food was here, the weather was here, the outdoors, the incredible networking from all the conventions, I just knew I had to make it home.
Oh, I love that. How long, well, it said 20-year funder here. How long have you actually been doing this, and what actually got you into this space? Because I know you're so passionate about it.
I don't tend to ask for permission, entrepreneurs, right? So I think when I was in college on the East Coast, I started noticing that it was easier as a capital broker to actually get somebody $5 million for their project than to actually get them the initial seed capital they needed for their venture. And so little did I know that would bring me into designing financial products, which would become startup loans. And then that would lead to then at some point saying, oh, well, I actually want to be on the private side versus just brokering, bank money, and became a VC, which I actually mostly did in Scottsdale. Oh. And then we did venture debt for many years. And then that led me to kind of realizing, oh, wait, fundraising is kind of broken for the great majority of founders and even for a lot of the funders, myself as a funder raising, funds and investing in startups. So that kind of led me into kind of my current obsession, which is automating the fundraising process, removing the friction from the fundraising process and building a platform to do that, which is called Fusion. And at the same time, you and I kind of met through all of our marketer buddies and stuff. But I also started realizing the power of getting people together for community a number of years ago. So that's kind of the other side of what we do is we're very, very, very committed to building community, specifically around small businesses, founders, and funders. And that also kind of led me to, when I went down the rabbit hole a couple of years ago of really trying to understand what was missing from the fundraising process, I had to start understanding who are the key stakeholders that make an ecosystem, whether it's Phoenix or Salt Lake or Vegas. Who are the key stakeholders that can help a founder to really accelerate their growth and kind of are the holders of the keys of capital. And that brought us into kind of ecosystem building, which is kind of like community building at a higher level, where you got a bunch of people that don't actually agree and don't actually want to work together, but you have to make things happen. So that's kind of where we're at today. So everything we do relates back to building venture ecosystems. And then, of course, we talk about founder funders all the time. That's kind of our obsession. It's creating those.
So that's basically like why you saw so much opportunity, basically in mastering community at this point.
Yeah. It actually came from, I don't know if you guys are familiar with transformational training, but I had signed up for a transformational training in 2017. It's a 6-month-long journey. Totally kicks your ass. It's kind of like Navy SEAL boot camp for the heart, mind, and soul. Whatever you're stuffing, whatever you're hiding, whatever you're running away from, it's going to come up, right? Super, super, super challenging. And I remember being in that experience, the very first couple of days, and I was being dismantled by this guy that had taught Tony Robbins and stuff. And it was awesome. It was what I signed up for. And I remember having the feeling of, how do I share this experience with everybody else? This high level of accountability, this environment of I'm the author of everything I can create in my life. And at the same time, saying, how do I keep myself safe now that I've seen the Matrix? Now that I see my ways of being that are unconscious, that are not serving me, the stories I'm telling myself. And I literally felt like God, or you want to call it the universe, said to me, you go build community. And it was just this very clear, like, don't question it. Doesn't matter what the financial return is, because I'm a full-time VC at the time, right? And there we go. We started launching communities. So, one of them, we started taking people on impact trips to build houses and schools all over the world.
That's amazing.
Which has been really rewarding. Then we launched Spice, which was, I think, probably the time frame you and I started getting to know each other. Spice is supporting prosperity, impact, contribution, and entrepreneurship. It's a multi-city community where we hosted events every single month, mastermind dinners, things like that. And then more recently, as I've evolved it, I started realizing, what would it be like if we actually owned the properties that we did all of our events at?
Smart.
Spice really operated on a model of what I called instant intimacy. Like, what's the most intimate place that we can get entrepreneurs together where they drop the ego and let's get real about what's going on in our lives? What's the impact that we want to create, right? How can we be purpose and contribution driven in our lives in general? And Spice didn't own any of the properties that we did events in. Half of our events were in homes, which was by design. And so with VentureHaus, it was like the next step forward is we're going to own the properties. We're going to own these 10 and 20 bedroom houses, which we have now here in Vegas. And we're going to throw our own events, and we're going to own the venue so no one can stop us from doing whatever we want to do. And so it's been really, really fun. And so our next goal is actually to come to Salt Lake and Scottsdale and Miami and LA. And we actually also have a content studio in our partnership across the street from Fontainebleau now. So we're super serious about community, building out content, and really creating that nexus between founders and funders, and making sure that founders have a voice and being super progressive with where we see content, actually moving.
Yeah, no, that's super smart. I know a lot of colleagues that are starting to do similar things. They actually own properties here in Vegas, but now they're actually starting to go into Scottsdale too. And some of them have actually asked us to come in and like, hey, would you like to invest with us in these, mansion-like properties? And I think it's very important at this time because we're like, hey, it's really where it's at. And a lot of these communities love these types of experiences. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I was really curious, Kurt. You said that you're out to fix what's broken. Obviously, the community sounds like it's a part of that.
Yeah.
But how would you describe what is broken in the VC funding arena?
Well, you've got, I tend to be a bit of a disruptor, right? So I'm just going to be honest about what's happening out there. So you've got a bunch of money movers that really like their position in the ecosystem. And the inefficiency of the market, which is to say, if you want capital, you have to come to me, works in their favor, especially if you're at the top of the food chain, which would be a bunch of venture capital firms that maybe I won't mention. Not saying they don't provide a very, 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 very valuable function inside of the innovation that becomes the technology. If you think about where venture capital firms operate, they are the ones that are helping to birth the biggest technology, the Ubers, the Airbnbs of the world, right? So it's not like it's not critical that innovation and that pioneership gets to happen, but they're not necessarily incentivized to make it easier to access them, right? But it's not any one party's necessarily fault. It's founders are not always ready to raise. They don't know how to raise. When they go to raise, they end up spending a year. I mean, let's just think about this. We're all entrepreneurs. Does it make sense to us, the speed at which blockchain's moving, the speed at which AI is moving? And AI has already changed the world, whether people know it or not. And it's gonna come at a blinding pace, and the way it's going to change the world. How is it possible that the technology is moving at that speed and fundraising still takes a year?
Yeah,
right?
It
doesn't make sense, right? So the friction on the back end. So if the founders have things that they need to do to be prepared, and they need to better understand the Japanese or the Swahili that is fundraising while they're falling out of an airplane trying to build their startup, then the other aspect is, do they understand how the game is rigged? The game of capital is rigged. That's the reason why my podcast is called Rigged. And at the end of the day, it's this lack of understanding around how you can stack capital into your venture at one time. I call this capital stack, right? Mm-hmm. Anyone that's a real estate developer understands this concept. You go pitch a city, you're going to describe, we have this tax abatement money. We have maybe a bond here in place. We have a mortgage. And they start describing these distinct capital types to the city. And then they say, and then we would like your $13 million to round out this $100 million project. That's a capital stack. Now, as a real estate developer, everybody knows this is how it works. But in venture, nobody knows this. They don't realize that one investor is not coming to save your business and that it's going to be at least more than one investor, but also different capital types that are going to come into your venture at one time. And then the daisy chain over time of capital and relationships and everything, that's called capital sequence. And these things are really complicated for a founder that is just an expert in what the problem they're trying to solve. They don't understand fundraising, right? So we teach this stuff every single week online in our fundraising fluency sessions.
Is that part of the tech aspect? You said like tech and automated part of it. So if someone let's say a founder came in and they're new to that, they're interested in going to the next level of funding, but they have no background in funding or any of that aspect. What would you say to them? Walk them through it, as if they're watching. They're like, I don't know what to do from here, but I'm interested in this and we're scaling, but do we need funding or should we do something else?
So in entrepreneurship, there's all these skill sets that we have to get really good at, right? Recruiting, right? Marketing, sales, building software. Fundraising is a skill set. And it's something that people need to master. So there's a founder that I helped her raise some of her money. She's like, I'm just raising $5 million. I'm good. I'm like, no, you will be fundraising for the next 10 years. She goes, what do you mean? I said, you want to build a $100 million company? She goes, yeah. I said, you are always fundraising. You are always you're always selling and marketing. And if you're a smart founder, you're selling and marketing before you go and raise, right? And then you're always recruiting. So it's fair to say that founders basically need to learn to pitch their ass off because that's all they're going to be doing all day long is pitching to clients, pitching to team recruits, and pitching to potential qualified investors that are a fit. So back to your comment, I think founders need to become fundraising fluent whether they're going to raise or not. 98% of businesses never raise, but it doesn't mean they shouldn't be fluent with capital. Know when to play which capital card. When, there's 4 major capital categories. There's public and gov funds. That's anything that started as taxpayer money. There's debt, and there's a bunch of different types of debt. There's equity, which is I'm going to give you a portion of my business. And then there's this thing we call raised revenue, which sounds like, I just need revenue into my business. Kurt, I understand that. And it's actually this idea that there's check writers that will write you a check. I call this sponsored capital as well. It's not equity. It's not debt. So it's not a loan, and it's not I'm giving you a piece of my company. If it's not equity and it's not debt, what is it? It's revenue. And so we teach founders how this stuff works. And the reason is even when the funding platform is done and it automates the introductions to your proximity to capital, all these different relationships that could fund you, you still have to pitch. You still have to pitch. You still have to understand this process. So right now we're teaching people through our online sessions. We do Pitch Kung Fu every Thursday.
Do you teach them also obviously where to pitch and how to get in front of these individuals?
In the founder's mind, they think that pitching brings them closer to funding. It doesn't. Being prepared, having 100 client conversations, building your authority, and doing these things actually gets you prepared to fundraise. That's the part they don't understand. That's the reason we teach product market fit, go to market, go to community, go to fundraise. And then we allow them to come into an environment with other exited founders, VCs, angels, every single week online to do Pitch Kung Fu, right? And then if you think about it,
I like the name.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's like, hey, you can get your butt beat in the dojo, or you can let the market kick your ass. And, take your pick, right? Take your pick.
Is there any type of prerequisite before a business owner like myself that has no idea what you do, but want help?
Yeah. So this is where community comes in. You can build a tech platform. It can help with automating certain introductions to capital. It can do all sorts of cool things. What it can't do is help you when you feel lonely.
Right.
Help you when you feel lost. Help you when you need something that's super personalized to you. So in the same way, I like to underwrite founders to understand where they need to get connected for different capital, right? And capital is not just dollar capital. It's data capital or your marketing and your sales, right? That's capital.
Mhm.
And then it's also human capital, which is the most important input in your business, is building the team, right? And so coming back to what I was saying is you get to figure out, are you a business owner or are you actually a startup? They're very, very different, but we build communities, whether it's built by, and we have these venues like VentureHaus that allow us to do events, and we don't really do events. The way I like to put it is we build communities that do events. So yes, we've done 500 founder and funder events in the last 5 years. We're crazy. We did 10 during the Super Bowl, right?
Wow.
It was wild.
Wow.
That's incredible.
We do constant pitch events online and in person, but we also recognize that there's all this stuff that people think that they want. Okay, we'll give it to you. But then we're going to deliver what you actually need, which is financial intelligence. Let's talk about mental health as a founder.
Oh gosh.
Let's talk about your frame around your money mindset when you go to raise. Are you announcing an energy of, I'm going to get this done, and here's the journey of how I'm going to take your money and I'm going to help you see into the future and I'm going to create that future? Or is it, I desperately need this money, I'm really down and out? Like our energy announces ourselves. So we get into these topics that really do resonate with founders or small business owners, but it's not necessarily what they come for. You can be sure that from doing all these events and all this community stuff, founders need help with capital and marketing. They probably need more help with marketing. They tend to have a customer acquisition problem, not a capital problem, and capital will not fix that. You have to understand how to acquire customers. But when they realize that community is the third thing that they're looking for, they don't come for it, but once they experience it, they stay for it.
And this is what your ecosystem addresses, everything you've just talked about, from the community to the education, the different levels of financing. You address all of that in your ecosystem. So
I want to count on states. I do. We're working closely with Florida. We're working very closely with Nevada. Love what Utah's up to. There's some cool things that Arizona's up to. And I'm not going to leave it a chance. So the North Star for all of this, the real obsession is creating what we call founder funders. Founder funders are founders that get capitalized and get to exit their businesses so that they can do it again, or they get to become the next angel investor or help the next generation of innovative entrepreneurs that get to change the world with the obsession with the problems they want to solve, right? Well, founder funders, which is what family offices are, is the reason we have a whole community devoted to family offices and ultra high net worths, which is what UNW means.
Mhm.
And that's called Mainsail. Mainsail understands the challenges that the first world problems that the family offices have. And we have a community for them and we do events for them. And then we have the more founder centric stuff. But everything we do is related to how do we graduate more founders to exit their companies and faster than anybody else. And the way we do that is through the three major kind of pillars. First is capital technology. So think of it as tech at the core. Community stack that we wrap around it. That's VentureHaus as a venue property network and as a venture studio, if you guys know what that is. And then we have communities for founders and communities for funders. And then the last piece, which we're very excited to be launching, and it's the reason we have a content studio and we're going to have content studios at every VentureHaus property, is because we're building a megaphone and a content pipeline and a marketing machine to make sure that it all works. Because the two hardest things to acquire in business are acquisition of capital and acquisition of audience. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to be working with the founder that built AdWords and sold it to Google.
That's amazing.
Pretty smart dude.
Yeah.
He has a content studio in LA. We put together Investment Week LA with some partners out there, and he's been coming out to Vegas, and he sees what I see. Tremendous, tremendous opportunity for people to start seeing this as the capital of capital and to be running events that are kind of March Madness style, kind of like the Pitch World Series, where founders get to learn what they need to know in order to graduate their businesses and to exit their businesses, and the opportunities to pitch it in front of billions of dollars worth of capital.
How do you see AI, like it's moving so fast
yeah.
in all businesses?
Yeah.
How do you know what so many programs, so many people saying, all right, this is what I'm going to use in your business, in your multiple businesses? How are you managing that?
So a couple of things. First of all, if a founder says I'm using AI, they better explain how they're using it, because I'm not taking that line anymore. That might have worked 18 months ago, but now I'm several hundred pitches in past that. And so I need to understand, do you understand how you're using it? And where are you feeding the data? Is it a private AI or is it just using ChatGPT? And I'm not throwing shade on that. I'm just saying there's a big difference, and there's a huge difference in cost and everything else. So when we talk about using AI, we're building them from scratch, whether it's we're building a pitch deck, feedback generator, or whatever. The second thing is, I like Socrates a lot. He had a pretty smart mind. He said, well, I'm not an expert in something. I'm going to find an expert. So I keep experts around that are following blockchain and crypto every day because I can't keep up with it, right? Mm-hmm. My thing that I follow and I focus on is being obsessed with where is the money moving? How do you create alignment of capital and understanding that problem? That's what I focus on every day. When it comes to AI, I make sure I have the smartest entrepreneurs in AI around me, and I ask them, and they teach me, and I'm always learning about it, but holy crap, it's moving at a speed that it's going to blow people's minds how fast it's going to move for negative and for good. And that's the reason we did a big AI debate on the Strip at our content studio, because I think people need to be aware of the positive and some of the challenges that are going to come, because it's going to happen, and you can't stop people from getting access to it. Be wild. Right. Yeah. I will also say it will help with the largest wealth transference we've ever seen. So entrepreneurs should optimistically hear that could be them. We're going to start seeing $1 billion solo entrepreneur companies.
Right.
It's all about value creation, which is very exciting. I mean, think about the diverse founders that never had access. And now it comes down to the innovation of their idea, and more importantly, how much they can execute, deliver that value.
Do you see an AI play in fundraising?
Oh, yeah. We're working on all sorts of AIs inside of the stack. I just mentioned the pitch deck feedback generator. Mm-hmm. Is that super important for fundraising? Not on the funder side, but for founders, it's a friction point. Oh, Kurt, there's 1,000 things I could put in this deck. I saw a deck that was 27 pages 2 days ago. I was like, 27 pages? I was like, it needs to be like 10 slides, because a great deck should be the backdrop to you pitching. You're the context. The deck's the backdrop. And how do we know this works? Steve Jobs was a genius.
Yep.
His decks were very, very simple. His speeches were copywritten, and he told us a great story and a narrative, right? AI is absolutely going to be part of it. I think we have a bit of a lead on AI because AI still doesn't know how these daisy chains of things work. The best books on fundraising are not about fundraising. They're history books. So you still have to really understand the mechanics of funding, and AI is not going to be writing checks anytime soon. That's just something I tell founders all the time at our Who's Got Our Money sessions. Every single month we record these sessions called Who's Got My Money, and sometimes I turn them into game shows and stuff like that.
Let's make a deal.
Yeah, right. And the thing is that human beings for the foreseeable future will be writing checks. We're still a couple of years out from a machine deciding whether or not you get funded. But the sorting, the analyst job, that's going to get AI assisted, and it's already begun. It's already happening.
What's been the most creative piece of AI that you've seen leveraged in there in the community?
Oh, man.
Or the smartest? What do you?
I don't think I'm even qualified to say what the smartest thing is. And I've seen like 17,000 pitches in my day.
Most efficient.
Well, just in general, how smart founders are using it that are non-technical to actually build code. That's just across the board, really freaking cool. How quickly they can get to an MVP. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect, but one of the things that founders don't really get, and I was on the horn with, I won't disclose who, a group that has built a very significant business. They're billionaires, and they spent north of $50 million on their business. And I was like, you guys made one of the cardinal sins. You cannot spend time and focus only on your product and never focus on market validation. So what's beautiful about what I just said is if you can do an MVP, a minimum viable product, in a matter of weeks, very quickly figure out if there's clients and customers for it, and doing that 100 client conversations, which is something you cannot skip. We can always tell if you've talked to your clients and actually figured out what's the pricing, what's the offer, what's their expectation, what's the perception, right? There's no skipping that. You need to have all that done before you go pitch, before you go raise. And so what's awesome is AI is helping with that, the code side. I'm a non-technical founder myself. I understand the mechanics of building community because I do it all the time. I understand the transactions when it comes to funding. So that's not something that AI knows yet. I say yet. Right? So it's coming. So it's kind of like the pairing of the thing is it becomes a superpower. So one of the other things I love is some of our friends, whether it's Bajal or Jeff Hunter, these guys are saying, okay, we're going to use remote teams and VAs, and we're going to pair it with AI. Now that may not seem revolutionary, but you have a force multiplier on your hands.
We do the same thing in our agency model.
Absolutely.
Like it has to be effective to be able to bring in not necessarily ChatGPT, but other tools and resources that can pull content faster. But you put people, human beings, on the content to make sure that it's proofread, that they pull compelling points. Because AI can spit out content, micro content, captions, but that might not be that most compelling point. Like there's still that human touch. You know, you can pull out like show notes of a podcast and things like that, but you still need to oversee some of these aspects so it's not doesn't seem like a computer for someone's episode. So we jumped on ChatGPT in November when it came out, like over a year and a half ago. And the first day we signed up and we're like, how can we incorporate this into our model so that we can help create content faster for our clients' podcasts? And then we started utilizing other types of softwares too, like video and other things like that do the captions. But we also have the designers that come in and actually have to have the element of some sort of design that can match and brand and things like that. It can pull captions, but still isn't perfect by any means.
If you're an expert, or if you're someone that's working every day to solve a problem that you're obsessed with, or you have an authority, right? AI is this amazing tool that really helps create leverage
and efficiency,
and increase the value and the opportunity for distribution of that value. Like as I told this group last night, and they're very smart. They can school me on a lot of things. I said, first-time founders focus on product. Second-time founders focus on distribution. And what we know is that AI helps dramatically with the distribution. So for me, that's kind of where my mind goes with where some of the coolest innovation is taking a simple idea and increasing the opportunity for execution on it and the distribution, because distribution is kind of everything. It's the reason why marketing and audience is capital, right? Because it's distribution. We also discussed last night the idea of how quickly we did events with Casamigos in Scottsdale at some of the Phoenix Open. Like we did some hangar events and stuff. And I got to hear the backstory of how, George Clooney and his partners, how quickly they got to their $3 billion exit. And then what happened? Rock did it faster. And then Ryan Reynolds did it faster. All because of the audience that they built. Coming back to authority, Yeah.
Definitely can leverage that when you have that following for sure.
And back to capital real quick. They said, well, how did they do that on the capital side? I said they had more proximity to capital because of the audience size they had. Right? Proximity to capital is how many different capital options do you know? It's like if you're the belle of the ball and you get asked to go to the ball, great, you got something. Especially if it's a handsome suitor. If you're the belle at the ball and you get 17 suitors, now you really got something. And so it puts your mind as into the mind of a founder that's raising. The more access you have to capital increases your likelihood of allocation to capital. And this is one of the major challenges that founders have is they don't know anybody that has capital. And their level of sophistication around the spectrum of available capital is friends and family, angels and VCs. And here's what they don't know. And what we share with them is that's 3%. It's hundreds of billions, but it's 3% of the available capital out there that's moving into venture. So founders need to not kid themselves in whatever the challenging market is. People are getting funded every single day. You get to decide if you're one of them based on how prepared you are. And I don't just mean like, do you know your business? I mean, are you doing the work on yourself? I look for founders where I look them in the eye and I know they have the eye of the tiger. I know they're going to get it done. I know the ball's going to be in the end zone no matter what it takes. You and I, we would be on like a Clubhouse with like Elon Musk and like this guy is going to win. You put this guy in a room, he's going to win. That's just who he is, right? Yeah. I remember he was talking about being on Mars and there was zero question in his mind. In 5 years, we're going to be on Mars. That's the strength of the frame. And that's how founders, and you can't really fake that. You have to kind of like put in the work, right? There's a reason I'm so confident about certain things is because I've gotten my butt kicked doing it,
How do you become a part of the founders?
Yeah, we have WhatsApp groups. Almost all this stuff is free. Most of our events are free. We really want to put our arms around workforce development, small business owners, founders and funders. Even our family office events, a lot of it is free. Almost all of it's free. So I'm happy to get people connected.
And where would people find information based on upcoming events, based on their area?
Yeah. So probably the best thing to do right now is I write on LinkedIn every single day about capital. So it's Kurt Walker, and I got the little chili pepper there. And so I would recommend if founders really want to learn, go read my featured articles. How to ask for investment. where to look for investment, how does sponsored capital work, those kinds of things. Do the homework. Don't come to me and ask questions that were written very clearly on my content. That shows me you're not prepared, shows me you're not serious, whatever. And then, of course, they can message and we can get them into the different groups. We are going to launch a new, we're looking at launching a community on School, actually. It's going to be fun.
When is that?
Next couple of weeks. That's going to be that's going to be a beginner community for small business owners and startups. And the reason for that is that the community we currently have, Fusion, it's really focused on fundraising, like really, and GTM, which is go-to market. And GTM is valuable for small business owners, 100%, whether they're raising or not. But small business owners maybe don't need to be hearing about fundraising every day. So that's the reason I'm kind of like, we probably need to create a broader group. And then a lot of the communities we built in the past, if you're talking design philosophy, they're closed, meaning Spice was not open for everybody. If you're not purpose and contribution driven, we don't care how much money you've made, you're not invited. It was an invite only type of a situation.
I remember that.
But Built By won't be like that. Everybody's welcome to come. Same thing with the Fusion community, which is both the funding platform and the fundraising community that we have. Those are a lot more open. I'm going to be a lot more direct with people, especially if they want to be a founder, you're going to need to act like one, whereas you're a small business owner. Okay. You've got all the time in the world. You're a founder. You don't. I was telling the group last night, they spent so much money on building their technology. And I said, you guys have a marketing problem on your hands. You better be ready to spend another $50 million to market this, because the technology will be irrelevant in 2 years. That's how it is even for me. We're racing the clock. We're racing AI. It's fun and it's, anxious at the same time.
I like your thoughts on one thing, Kurt. When I look at leverage opportunities, growth opportunities, accelerators, I see two things, and you mentioned both of them. One obviously is AI. The other is VAs.
Yeah.
So do you see in your community where you can bring in a VA expert to map out the sequence, the process, and everything you do, and how that can be addressed more efficiently, more effectively, especially more cost effectively with the right VAs, and then the same with AI.
Yeah.
So you can basically come in and say, we can save you $100 million.
Yeah.
We can grow your business by $100 million with more efficiency, more effectiveness by leveraging these two components of VA and AI. Is that an expertise and a strategy you bring to the table?
Yeah. So here's what's cool. These experts already exist. I don't have to be the expert. I don't think in a process way. I'm a very intuitive kind of wing it type of person, because I'm prepared, because I study my ass off, right? I'm mountain biking. I'm listening to audiobooks. I read 150 books a year, So I'm a machine that way, but I tend to be very focused on leaning into my skill set around capital. So again, brought up Bajal, brought up Jeff Hunter. These guys have gotten smart enough to know they know VAs inside and out, how to get great VAs, how to manage them, whatever. And then they have become really AI fluent to pair them. So I don't have to become the expert, but yes, there's arbitrage opportunities left and right. And I've always wanted to have a VA, an army of remote workers and VAs helping to manage and create engagement and follow up and help every community member feel seen, witnessed, and heard. Like, what are you working on? Who are you? What do you need next? Kind of questions, right? And so AI provides an opportunity to take that the touches that make community special, that intimacy special, to a whole nother level. So absolutely, they're some of the go-to people. And then Tamara and I know a ton of really smart marketers that are spending time figuring out how to leverage AI for marketing. And then the other partnerships I have are all AI experts on how to leverage it for business and business use cases. So we have a new partnership with a group out of LA we just brought to Vegas called Disruptive. They built all the video stuff you've seen out of Lucasfilm and Apple. I don't need to be an expert in that. They are. And so I let them do that. And they're building out basically a stack of AIs that are focused on different use cases, like general counsel for law or whatever. So what we'll do is we'll leverage those for our ventures and anything that's inside of our venture studios, because Disruptive is also a venture studio. The group out of LA I mentioned, Rex with Famecast and Creator Space, they're a venture studio as well. And then we'll leverage it for portfolio companies. And this is stuff I never had. So if you're an investor, you now can say, we can leverage this technology to make HR, like whatever these things are, easier, faster, less, more cost effective.
Because that's the problem, really, is people are lost in this sea of AI tools, applications, prompts, technology that's coming out every day.
Right.
Every day you look at, there's a new stack of AI tools. Where do you start? Right. Yeah. Who's going to guide me through this landmine or this land field of AI tools? And I think that's where there's a great opportunity for the community, the ecosystem to come together.
Yep.
And we're going to guide you through that minefield.
So there's people that do this with like blockchain. I've got a buddy, James, with Carpool. He strips all of the specifics of who's doing what in crypto, and it's just the fundamental technology, understanding the fundamental technology, what it means to be a sovereign individual, how you can protect your capital, those kinds of things. And I love that. The other thing I was going to say is you can meta learn. Like, I am totally not opposed to loading up a playlist on YouTube. It's what I use it for. And I listen to it at 3x. And I chart, if I want to quickly learn about a topic to get a little dangerous, right? I'll leave having the deep instincts up to the experts. But if I want to understand, and I've read so many business plans and stuff over the years from all the investment we've done that I can usually get dangerous, like with the topic, right? That's what I do with community platforms. I see what other marketers are saying. And then I call up a few and I say, hey, I've got this gut feeling about this. I did this with a couple of 2 Comma Club marketers the other day. And I said, I understand this I'm going to build some products around funding. And if people come to me with this specific format of how I want to do a deal, whether it's venture or acquisition or even real estate, then I'll fund it. If it's not, it doesn't matter who they are, I can't fund it. And because I'm productizing the offering. Because in my first part of my career as a VC, we were funding all sorts of stuff and it wasn't as disciplined in the focus. And I have to get way more focused because I don't have unlimited amounts of capital and I absolutely do not have unlimited amounts of time. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
Well, this has been awesome. Well, I appreciate. I could go on this topic for forever, but
next time.
Yeah, no. Well, I appreciate you, Kurt, just coming out and connecting with all of us today and answering our questions on this. I think it's a unique topic, and for all those out there that are watching this episode, definitely find Kurt Walker on LinkedIn and all the resources that they have. And be sure to connect with the team. If this is something that you're interested in or know somebody of it, definitely comment and share this link out. And we appreciate you all. We'll see you in the next episode.